Welcome to another episode of the Almost Daily Zencast. Hello and namaste. I am your eccentric and humble host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Today is Tuesday, April 28th. It is 1:14 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Let's get started. Welcome to the show, everyone. I hope you have survived yet another 24-hour period of stay-at-home lockdown madness. The days blur together, that's for sure, don't they? Here we are, though, in a worldwide emergency situation that may or may not be a boatload of malarkey. The debate rages on. Plandemic or actual end of the world? Punishment from God or man-made disaster? You know what's funny, though? And this is where people get annoyed with me. It doesn't matter which of the many conspiracy theories you think is true. They all have the us versus them conflict creation neuro-linguistic hyper-reactionary mental conditioning that pits American against American. That's what I see. Beyond the noise, beyond the real concerns and the hyped up concerns. When you see past that, there's some patterns that emerge. And here's the thing. Throughout history, at any given time, as individuals and as a collective, we've always had this meta-choice, this metastructural fork in the road, this intellectual and spiritual and metaphysical opportunity to either react or grow, right? The title of today's segment is Transformational Growth or Reactionary Change. Guess which one is toxic and which one is healthy? Now, most people don't think of themselves as reactionary, right? Most people believe that they have come to the conclusions that they cling to through some sort of lack of a better word, righteous process. Now, I'm not trying to judge most people. I'm not trying to label most people. I'm trying to suggest that I think most of us, all of us perhaps, have been misguided to rely on reactionary change most of the time. Take a look back through history. Does it look like we're really making transformational growth happen for the benefit of all humanity? Or does it look like we are engaged in a pendulum swing back and forth of reactionary change? I humbly propose to you, dear friends, that reactionary change has been the preferred modality, and thus we have long been conditioned and manipulated towards that. Towards reactionary change. So much so that we no longer, collectively speaking, really know how to have the simplest of discussions without letting our emotions get reactionary. Trust me, I include myself in that statement. It is difficult to have real, serious, deep, honest discussions with people about subjects that challenge both parties that force anyone or everyone to question their assumptions. It's a catch-22, right? That we feel we've made all this progress throughout time, but that really that which we've called progress has been perhaps one clusterfuck of reactionary change that may or may not have been a radical mistake after another. Reactionary change, reactionary behavior has led us towards some interesting innovations and has sometimes caused the development of fascinating inventions and or developments in our world. But bottom line, I think that all that reactionary thinking has kept us in a very divisive place, thinking constantly in terms of us versus them, when in fact there is no them. There is no other than us, right? Spiritually speaking. The human species has most definitely painted itself into a dangerous corner. Now, we can be reactionary about it and spend a lot of time pointing fingers and arguing about who is to blame and who's truly at fault. But what good does that actually do? When everything's interconnected to the point where it doesn't matter who is at fault. If we are all complicit and we are all in it together and we are all being asked to take responsibility for the whole. That's my understanding of what plagues us deep down, is that as individuals we don't want to take responsibility for the whole. Right? It's an easy idea to wrap your brain around. I'm not responsible for what those other people did. But I am those other people. Those other people are me. We're just caught up in this dance of Leela, this illusion of separateness, this construct of Maya, this holographic fractal puppet theater of the flesh. We are moving forward through tumultuous events. And circumstances are, for lack of a better term, certainly almost truly unprecedented. Except for the fact that if you really set aside one's reaction, our own reactionary reactions to the things that we are not happy about, and look clearly at what we're doing as a species, it becomes sort of inescapable, I propose, I think. I would humbly invite others to see if this is true or not. It becomes an unescapable conclusion that we have to change the way we operate. It doesn't matter what preferences we may have been clinging to up until now. It doesn't matter what conveniences we may be addicted to up until now. We have to change the way we operate. We can no longer constantly be invoking change that is transactional and reactionary to the contexts that we create through transactional and reactionary decisions. You see how it becomes a chain of transactional, reactionary causality that goes back and has always got to do more with that last set of circumstances that we're reacting to, as opposed to a holistic, thoughtful, inclusive, transformative growth that uplifts the species, we wind up with a patchwork of quote-unquote common sense ideas, none of which agree with one another. I've said it before and I'll say it again, friends. There is no such thing as common sense. Don't rely on that crutch for making your point, because there's no such thing. Common sense is an abstraction that I believe personally is ladled with ego trap, designed to make the person using it feel superior to those who he is deemed to be lacking it. Common sense. Don't you have any? Ego's working right through that. Don't fall for it. Besides, even if it were true, what good has it done us ever? I see no evidence of it being useful. Mostly because I see no evidence of it actually existing. Because every single one of us is caught up in this ideation, this illusion, this matrix of separation, and have the capacity to have our entire mind filled with private, undisclosed, unknowable, reactionary thoughts, fears, ambitions. So how do we rally around a new model, a new paradigm, if we're all busy pointing fingers and blaming each other for all the things that are wrong in the world? This, my friends, is where my incessant and I'm sure often annoying suggestion of meditation comes in. Not because I have some special technique or because I've achieved some special place in my meditation. Not at all. But because I think, and so do many others, that it is a organic, natural, inborn birthright of an activity. This concept, it's not a concept, right? It's a thing that you live. It's a practice that you can practice. It's a modality in which you can operate. And that only you as an individual can determine for yourself the meaning of. Like, what does it mean to meditate? Other than the functional practice, the mechanical guidance given by all those who've ever given guidance about meditation, there is this ephemeral, indescribable je ne sais quoi quality. And that sounds ridiculous, right? That sounds like a cop-out. But I cannot define for you that which you will experience behind your ego mind. Words really can't express it very well to begin with. And only you can dig deep enough behind your ego mind to experience that for yourself. No one can make you experience it. You have to do the work for yourself. If we all engaged in that long neglected spiritual work, if we all participate in this long marginalized and vilified and neglected form of effort, then we might actually be able to discover in ourselves the divine light which transcends all human ideological constructs. And if we can reconnect to that truth within, then we can move forward and behave in such a way as to inspire and manifest transformational change instead of reactionary, transformational growth instead of reactionary change. I could be wrong. I'm not pretending to know some absolute truth. Always be wary of anyone claiming they know some absolute truth. The only absolute truth I've come across in the universe is that there is no absolute truth, because the universe is, at the very fundamental building blocks, a relativistic place, a relativistic phenomena, a relativistic series of interconnected events. So how can anything be absolute? Absolutism is an ideological construct that facilitates reactionary change, that inspires transactional, ego-driven thinking and behavior. Let us not get caught up in that. There's a lot of talk about freedom. I mean, there always is, right? This is America, land of the free, built by slaves. But how do you define freedom? Especially if the very notion of it requires that you engage in some form of reactionary fight for it. You know what I mean? Like, what is freedom? And does it need to be fought for? That sounds like a crazy question. For most people, they can only speak of freedom in terms of fighting for it, of taking it back, of not letting it be taken away. But who can take away your freedom, I ask you? How can your freedom be taken away? Freedom is not an object that can be stolen from you physically. So what is it? Is freedom merely the ability to move yourself around without any conflict or obstruction? If that's your idea of freedom, I humbly invite you to consider that you are severely limiting yourself. Is freedom your ability to say any damn thing you please? If that is your idea of freedom, I humbly encourage you to consider that you just might be missing the point. What is freedom, and why must we fight each other for it? Who set up this paradigm? And why do we keep reactionarily engaging in it? Fighting each other for our freedoms and taking each other's freedoms away. In my humble opinion, freedom is something deeper than anything that fighting can achieve. Let me ask you this. If we must become the monsters that we seek to liberate ourselves from, have we really achieved freedom when we butcher those monsters? If we must become the monsters that we seek to liberate ourselves from, have we really won our freedom? Have we really achieved anything? Perhaps freedom can never be taken. If that is so, then your external circumstances almost become irrelevant. Your freedom is something only you can give away through your actions and your beliefs. Is freedom the ability to choose? Is freedom the ability to travel, to express oneself verbally, to vote the way one chooses or desires, to achieve any task that one sets out to achieve? What is it really? And what does it have to do with the choice between change or growth? I think that many people think of freedom in the most one-dimensional terms possible. That they think of freedom only in terms of their convenience. I think most people think of freedom in transactional terms, that they think they are only free when they are able to do those transactions they desire to achieve. And that if they are unable to pursue a specific transaction, then their freedoms have been impinged upon or infringed upon. But what if freedom is deeper than that? What if freedom is not exclusively bound up in doing of things? What if freedom is not about the ability to ambulate at one's discretion? What if freedom is not exclusively about one's ability to express oneself without interruption? What if freedom is larger than those things? What if freedom is not bound up by our material plane at all? What if freedom does not need to be fought for? What if freedom cannot be purchased with violence and bloodshed? Then what? If we come to understand that we abandon our freedom the moment we begin to try and fight for it, that we give up our freedom the moment we seduce ourselves with us versus them thinking, then perhaps we will gain the clarity required to achieve the healing necessary to shift gears from this transactional, reactionary change from one extreme to another, so that we may be able to move forward with transformational growth that uplifts everyone. And why is that such a bad idea? Why are so many people arguing against compassion and love and taking care of one another? Is that freedom? The ability to say, fuck you, you don't deserve what I have? Because that's what it sounds like what most people are clinging to. Most people talking about my freedom are really expressing their desire to be able to curb someone to the fucking curb. Most people bitching and moaning about my freedoms do not understand that it is either all of us or none of us when it comes to that. Anyone gearing up to fucking butcher some perceived enemy in order to fight for their freedom is a slave to the war profiteers and has already given away their freedom, in my humble opinion. I could be wrong. But you know what? Do you know where I feel my freedom? I certainly do not associate my freedom with any external circumstance that I may reactionarily have a reaction to. I feel my freedom at the soul level. Whether I can walk the earth at my discretion or I am bound up by some parameters made up by man. My freedom is not undermined or stolen. No one can take my freedom away. They can lock me up, they can tie me down, they can shoot me in the head. But my freedom is not exclusively associated to this talking meat suit that I'm currently inhabiting. Freedom is larger than that, in my humble opinion. I could be wrong. But maybe if we stopped fighting for our freedom and started cultivating it, if we stopped fighting for my freedom versus your needs and started providing for everyone freely, maybe then we would truly transcend this pitiful, limiting set of constructs that we cling to. I'll tell you this, I really do not think that freedom will ever be won by fighting with each other over which ideological construct is most righteous. If that's the path we stay on, we will never know what freedom truly is. We'll just keep fighting for it. And where's the freedom in that, if we are slaves to the meat grinder? If we are slaves to the war machine? What freedom then? Let us stop reacting to the perceived threats to our freedom, and let us start transcending the boundaries we create for ourselves and each other. Let us stop reacting to our worst fears with anger and violence, and let us transform ourselves and each other with forgiveness and love. I think therein lies the truth of freedom. As always, friends, I humbly thank you for tuning in. I apologize for any incoherent, spirally rambles I may have gone off, or tangents that may have been distracting. And I humbly invite you to tune in to other segments and other episodes of my podcast project known as the Almost 80s Zencast. Until next time, may peace, love, and grooviness blossom in your heart. And remember, you can pay it forward. You can share your love. You can heal yourself and others. You can liberate yourself from that which you perceive to be binding you in this realm. Namaste, friends. Today's track is titled T7 Drum Step 101 Remix, Relearning the Steps. That's DJ Zed from the fictional album The Early Years, Volume 2. Before I forget, I totally want to take a moment and give a shout out from the Sprecher.com analytics page for this humble project. I just want to say hello to anybody in the following cities that have been tuning in to check out the show. What's up, Buffalo, New York? Nicosia, Cyprus. Corona, California. Los Angeles, California. Golden, Colorado. Phoenix, Arizona. Huntington Beach, California. Pratt, Kansas. Macau, Puerto Rico. And Tacoma, Washington. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Yeah, the country list goes United States, Cyprus, India, Puerto Rico, Canada, United Kingdom, Italy, Mexico, France, Germany. Thank you, my friends. Thank you. If you like what you listen to, share, comment, etc., etc., etc. Stay strong, folks. These are weird and wild days, and they are dark for many. But let's not make it worse. Stop arguing with one another about who's at fault and just start healing. Because that's what actually needs doing. Once again, friends, I humbly thank you. I say namaste to you, and I wish you a beautiful day despite the circumstances.